again another week of football in high school football. This is high school crunch time. Jonny Samp, Dom D'Angelo, the voice of Notre Dame, and we have another fun show in line for you here this evening. It should be a great one. Dom, how we doing this week? How we feeling?
I'm doing good. First week of October, and it sure feels like it, huh? This is
It definitely
football
dropped.
weather.
Northeast Wisconsin is definitely seeing that drop in weather, and it's I got to be honest. The long sleeves aren't such a bad thing. I got long sleeves on today, a little bit of that. You got a sweater on.
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, we had our summer. It's been a long summer, long hot summer, right here in Wisconsin. But nothing better than getting back out there and having that football weather, I would say, because then you get the hot cocoa, you can get everything else going, get the blanket out if you're watching a game, and, just have a great time out there. But high school football is red hot here in Northeast Wisconsin, and we are back at it to talk about it. And we'll start right here with, you guys had a big game, that Notre Dame game versus Menasha.
Yeah.
Guys came out with a big dub, I would say, in the FRCC South. We'll have you highlight that one a little bit.
Yeah, it was the game of the year in the conference for sure. I think that's not too far of a stretch to say that. 28-21 was the final, and if anyone didn't see the ending and how this one concluded, the Tritons had the ball with about 3 minutes to go in regulation. They had the ball on the Menasha side of the field. They had, I think, a 4th and 1, and they go to hand the ball off, and they fumbled the snap. So not only did they fumble it, but they didn't get anywhere close to the first down marker. So Menasha gets the ball. They're down by 8 because they missed an extra point. So they're driving down the field, and they punch it in the end zone, and they get the 2-point conversion. There's 30 seconds left at this point. They were backed up for the kickoff because of a penalty, and so Notre Dame gets a good return on the kick, and it's a 2nd down and 1 from the Menasha, let's call it 37-ish yard line, and Max Pierce throws a laser to Charlie Hornacek, who catches this. He's standing, if people can picture this, at the right hash mark. Okay, no timeouts. Catches this pass. He breaks out of one tackle, and he's running towards the sideline. And he breaks another tackle, and then he turns this thing upfield and gets into the end zone. So he broke 2 or 3 tackles on this catch, and he gets into the end zone, and Notre Dame takes the lead. And then Menasha, on their next drive, kind of desperation, they just threw it up, and who else but Charlie Hornacek came down with the game-sealing interception. So big time game for Charlie Hornacek, who I would say is without question the player of the game. 4 catches for 76 yards and that game-winning score. He also had an interception in the game. He had 6 total tackles. He was everywhere. He's getting everything that you want out of a commit. He's committed to Minnesota Duluth next year. So really strong showing for him. And on the Menasha side, an absolute heartbreaker to have that one slip through your fingers, because they, like I said, tied it up with not that much time to go, and then just, didn't quite execute down the stretch, and that Notre Dame did. So give them credit where it's due.
Yeah, and just to recap, Notre Dame winning 28-21 in that contest. So it was definitely a close game down to the wire. One of those games that we were looking forward to. We were expecting it to be a close game. There was no real. Either side wasn't really going to be, we didn't expect either side to really have a true advantage. I know we wanted to see a lot from the run game on both sides, and we wanted to see the passing game going on. Now, Charlie Hornacek, he has been a dog all season. We've highlighted his picks. We've highlighted his catches as a receiver. He's playing both sides of the ball, and he's doing a fantastic job at it. Duluth is getting a great, I would say, two kind of a Swiss Army knife there from Notre Dame Academy. And he's just been really good. He's a fun player to watch. I haven't met him yet. He seems like a nice kid. And he seems like he has a lot of fun out there and just makes big plays. If it wasn't Big Play Slay, we'll call it Big Play Hornacek, but he's had a big game. Another guy that had a really big game, and he will be on our show next week, ladies and gentlemen, is Christian Collins, or soon, maybe not next week, but he had a big game. Rushing, huge. 31 carries, 217 yards, and 3 TDs. That's not something that's very common. That's not something that happens all the time. He had 2 70-yard rushes for a touchdown, I believe, and he just looked good. There's no other way to say it. that the Triton offense is clicking and doing it very well. And they got a really kind of, nice game to kind of relax, I would say. I wouldn't necessarily say relax, but a nice game to kind of maybe take the edge off a little bit of such a highly contested game from Menasha, and especially going down there. That's a different environment, and getting into those situations, especially when it's a close game, having that Charlie Hornacek big play is always going to come through, and that's what your big players got to do. They got to keep playing, and they got to play ball really well. And Charlie Hornacek showing that he can do it, along with Christian College and so many others on that Notre Dame offense. But looking here, we do have they do have Sheboygan South this Friday. Kind of a turn of the tables. I wouldn't say necessarily the best team in the conference. 1-5, I believe, on the season, and just coming off a loss to North at 49-6. So it might not be as close of a contest as we would like to see, but you never know. Yeah, any given day, I always say, with any team in high school football, depends what you eat for lunch. Maybe you have a bad lasagna or something like that and doesn't sit well with you. It can always make or break a team. But let's talk a little bit more about that game. Do you have anything else you want to highlight from that contest against Menasha that really kind of went your way? I won't say your way, but Notre Dame's way, and really kind of came out with a hot win there down for the FRCC South.
Two things. Number one, there were two long touchdowns, one each way. I think Menasha would have had a 97-yard score, but it got called back because of a holding penalty. So that took 7 points off the board there. And I believe Christian Collins would have had another touchdown, but I think that one got called back for a holding penalty too. So it was pretty well played on both sides. I do think that Menasha did definitely show something, but I want to talk about this from the Notre Dame perspective for a second.
Notre Dame perspective is always dangerous.
Well, that's true. I'm looking at the box score here. Christian Collins, everybody knows how great he is. 31 carries, 217 yards, 7 yards a carry, 3 touchdowns. The dude is an absolute animal. The next leading rusher had 3 carries for 15 yards. Kingston Allen, who we were singing his praises a couple of weeks ago when Christian was out because of injury, did not get an attempt in this game. In the receiving game, you had Charlie Hornacek, 4 catches, 76 yards. You had the fullback, Jack Whitehouse, had 1 catch for 23 yards. And then you had the second string tight end, who's albeit a very good second string tight end, Joey Massey, 2 catches, 62 yards. You will notice that there's one name that I didn't list there, and it's James Flanagan. I was at this game. I was standing on the sidelines. Big thank you to the Notre Dame athletic director, Matt Koenig, for taking us down there.
Big shout out to Matt. Big Matt.
I'm pretty sure I can remember James Flanagan running a route twice. Okay? He is the number 1 ranked tight end in the state. He's number 7 nationally. And I don't know necessarily what the game plan was coming into the game, obviously. I'm not talking to the coaching staff about that stuff. But you got to find a way to get him involved in this offense, because he's too good not to. I mean, he's everything you would want and more in a player. And he plays defense very well, too. He had a tackle for loss defensively. But I just feel watching this team that there's another wrinkle that they can add to this offense if they were to use James Flanagan more. And then from the Christian Collins perspective, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. These next 2 games, they play at Sheboygan South this Friday, and then they are at Green Bay West next week. I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to turn down his usage a little bit, because you don't want him. I think that's what kind of hurt them last year a little bit when they got into the playoffs. I thought he looked kind of gassed towards the end of the season. And his brother Jack and Kingston Allen have both proven that when given opportunities, they can be efficient in this offense. So I think the next 2 weeks, that's what I'm looking for, is more variety in this offense, especially with it. If they keep doing the like running approach, that's totally fine. But I think you need to have more of a running back by committee, kind of similar to how we've talked about some of these teams. Like
So
Nina's a
splitting
good
carries and
example.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, Nina and Kimberly are good examples of that. They
Yeah.
really split it up. I think they need to get more of that these next 2 weeks, and then also I can't fathom having a tight end that talented and you only have him run two routes. Now maybe the game plan was to, you know, was to do that, and if that's so, that's fine. But I think you got to give him at least an opportunity to do something in the passing game.
Now, what if? Now, I'm just speculating. I don't know anything that's going on within that department of the coaching staff. And what if they knew they could beat him with that running game and that sort of thing without using him, and they're just kind of hiding him for the playoffs? Because that could be like a back pocket, guy that comes out and it's like 3rd and 5, and then he's running the little dip, just down and out routes and just getting those yards. And then in the end zone, I think he could be destructive. I mean, he's a big body. He's played both sides of the ball. He knows how those defenders are going to be, pressing against him and trying to get him off his line. I think he's going to be a fantastic weapon here coming playoffs. And then you're going to get some, I would say, better teams coming in too. I mean, especially because you guys are undefeated on the season, you're gonna probably take it a little bit, at least a little ways through the playoff direction. Now, given state championships really hard to get to, we'll see how things go. But if you get to that point, if you're the coach, am I implementing James Flanagan more, or am I going to keep what we know is working? Your kind of bread and butter. With like Christian Collins, Kingston Allen. I know Kingston didn't have the greatest game, but are you if you are the coach now? This is all your department. This is all your chair. What are you doing? Are you implementing even if things are working with the bread and butter?
I don't think it's wrong. This was a big game. We hyped this up this last week about this game. We've talked mainly about the Fox Valley here. There are two divisions in the Fox River Classic Conference. There's a North and a South. Notre Dame's been the class of the South for the last couple of years here. Menasha historically has always given them a really good game. So I think these next 2 weeks I would be more not allowing, that's not the right verbiage, but you know, I would be more okay with, kind of maybe keeping the bread and butter thing going on. But there were a number of times they got to third down or they got inside the red zone. There was one time. Now Christian Collins is as sure-handed as they come. Don't get me wrong, but
I was gonna
they
say, don't piss him off before he comes on the show.
no. He's an absolute stud. Menasha had like 9 or 10 guys in the box. Like they knew it was going to Christian, and they didn't change anything. They're on the 3 yard line, and then Christian gets blown up in the backfield. So I don't think, to your point about using Flanagan in the red zone, I don't know why they haven't at this point. Maybe this will change in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah,
I
maybe they hear
just
Dom D'Angelo here on High School Crunch Time.
they could throw him a 50-50 ball.
Yeah,
Get him
no,
in a
that's what I'm saying. Put the cookies
yeah.
up high. Put the cookies up high.
He's taller than, let's call it 90 to 95% of the opponents that you're facing. Let's just put little fade route in the end zone.
Yep.
Max Pierce has shown he can throw the ball, so
Yep.
let's just get him one-on-one matchup. Let's see if he catches it. Which, I mean, with as good as he's been, there's a high chance that will happen. So, that was just me being a spectator watching that one. It was
No,
it
that's
was
a
good to
valid
see.
point. I mean, you're not using. Isn't he committed to Notre Dame?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, why? I mean, I understand maybe injury risk might go into that, but you also got to play him. Got to let the dogs hunt. Got to let him get some catches. So it is a good point. We might have to talk to Christian Collins about that next week. See what he thinks, depending on what happens in this game against South. But let's move a little bit more towards that. I know we wanted to talk about that a little bit, but do you have a score prediction for that game versus South?
It's probably going to be Notre Dame big. I'm gonna go with South so far this year, 1-5 on the season. Had a tough loss to Sheboygan North last week. They haven't to this point really shown that much of an ability to move the ball downfield efficiently. They played at Notre Dame last year. They lost 56 to nothing. So they're at home this time around, which should help. But they just haven't been able to consistently move the sticks, and against Notre Dame, you're going to have to do that in order to have a chance of winning. And they've dropped 3 of their last 4. So I'm going Notre Dame big in this one. And quite honestly, I think Notre Dame will probably be 8-0 by the time they get to Oshkosh North to end the season.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go the same way. I think it's gonna be big for big game for Notre Dame once again. I would expect to see some backups get in play. Just get some of those guys some reps, let the starters rest a little bit. Christian Collins being one of them. I would say Charlie Hornacek could take a rest. James Flanagan, maybe he gets out there and just tries to get some passes and reps because he hasn't had the reps. But we'll see. I mean, it should be. I think I expect it to be a lopsided game. I expect Notre Dame to get out there and probably win like 35-3 or something like that, and dominating fashion. And they've been good all season. And then you just mentioned here, you said mentioning Oshkosh North because they do have GB West the following week. And that one, GB West coming back a little bit as a program. I think they still have a lot of work to do. I believe that one is at Green Bay West, correct?
Yeah. Yep. They go to
So
Green
you guys
Bay West,
travel
and then
guys travel 2 minutes from campus.
yeah, right.
Yep, and just start the bus and get off it. And then you guys have Oshkosh North. Is that one at home?
Oshkosh North is at home on October 18th. Yeah.
So that would be the only real other game I see that's going to be a challenge for that Triton squad. Oshkosh North, hasn't really had the best season, but they can surprise you, and they've done that in the past. But any other thoughts here on Notre Dame looking towards the end of the season, or also move on to Kimberly as we always have the big dog coming up right after?
Not a ton. Like I said, I think the next 2 weeks are going to be less stressful than it probably was last week Friday for them. And then, Oshkosh North, I think, will actually give them a little bit of a game here. They're 4-2 on the season. They score points, man.
Yeah, they do.
I was looking at their numbers, 35 points a game, and quite honestly, that number is somewhat skewed. They played Menasha on a Thursday. Now you'll see they got shut out 20-0, but their starting quarterback didn't play.
Yeah.
So is that the most?
We'll see. Maybe that North team does give you guys a run for your money. You guys
it could be a shootout. I think it could be a shootout, and that would be fun to beat. I'll be calling that one, so that'd be fun to watch.
Yeah, that'll be fun. But let's go to Kimberly once again. They keep rolling. I mean, the Papermakers, dumbest name in all of the WIAA, but actually dumbest mascot, I think. But they once again smothered their opponent 35-7. That being Hortonville, Brady Ellison, 8 for 12, 130 yards, 2 TDs, and no picks. He had a clean game, clean as a whistle as you can get. And then taking a look here at the run game, Keegan Plow, 15 carries, 132 yards, 2 TDs, 8.8. So he did fall below his 10 yards per carry, which was kind of exciting to see as somebody who very much doesn't like Kimberly football, but that's all right. And they have a very spread attack against receivers, but looking at it now, this is a big game. This is going to be the big game. And I think this would be, if I could highlight one game, this would probably be the game of the week. Neenah, come on, dogs. Let's go Rockets. They take on the Neenah Rockets at Neenah. And that's going to be a really fun one because, both teams talented. I would say Neenah's having a little bit more of a struggle this season, obviously. Kimberly just continuing their ways as the evil empire of, Northeast Wisconsin and the state of Wisconsin football, or high school football, I mean. Just kind of like the Death Star, just roaming around, destroying every other school. And just moving on. I know I'm being a little bit exaggerate, but that's all for fun. So we just have a good time here. And yeah, so let's talk about that Neenah Kimberly game a little bit.
To your point, this would be my game of the week. I would be shocked if there's another matchup in this area that warrants the attention and coverage that this one's probably going to get.
Yeah.
Interested to see how this one goes. It is at Neenah, which should help them. Big game, get the student section going. Neenah this year has had a little bit of a tougher time against some of the higher tier teams. They played Muskego early in the season, and then
Muskego
Kaukauna.
is was a talented squad at the beginning of the season, so I'm not going to discredit that one.
Well, I'm not going to either. And the thing that'll be interesting here is this is, if I may say, I know Appleton North has had a nice season
They have.
this to this point. They've played at Muskego and at Kaukauna. They get Kimberly at home. So that could maybe change things potentially for them because it's way different even in high school going on the road and trying to get a quality win. Good news for them. Grant Dean had a good game last week, 15 for 80 yards and 2 scores. So they're going to need everything that he's got and more to take down this Kimberly club. Who, to your point, man, they just keep on rolling. They're averaging
I mean,
40 points a game.
what are we supposed to do at this point? I mean, it's been a number of years since Kimberly. They don't get beat much. They maybe get one loss a year. I think like the last time they had double-digit losses has to be over 10 years ago. Um, I mean, they just continue to dominate every season, and yeah, I think this Nina game, if there's one game, we should go to it. Would be this Nina Kimberly game, a little road trip for Jonny and Dom. We could make a little show out of it, and then we. I'm just thinking out loud.
I'd be down. I'd be
Dude,
down.
that'd be so much fun. Like, go down to Nina and just be like, yeah, we're these two guys that run this podcast, talk about high school football. And we thought this was the game of the week, so we are here. Dude, I might actually think about it. But anyways, so what would be your score prediction for this one with this Kimberly and Nina game?
This one's gonna be close, I think. And this also starts a stretch of 3 tough opponents for Kimberly. They're at Nina this week, and then they're at home the next 2 weeks against Kaukauna and Appleton North. Until I see them lose a game, I got to pick them to win, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got the Death Star floating in.
Pretty much. So I think they keep up this impressive scoring pace that they've been on. The lowest scoring game for them has been 35 points. So, what does that tell you? They're just an absolute machine. I'm going to go Kimberly gets the win. I do think Nina keeps it close. I think they're going to give them a good fight. So I'm going to go 35 to, I'm going to say 21 Kimberly. And I think Nina's going to give them everything they've got, and it'll be really, really close at halftime. And then Kimberly will come out in the second half and kind of establish that line of scrimmage, more so than Nina has shown that they can do throughout parts of this season.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I would go probably 31 for Kimberly. And then I'll go 31-21. Kimberly gets the win, but I think Nina puts up a good fight. Nina, I know they're a strong team. They've had a rough start to the season, and they got beat by Kaukauna, so that wasn't real ideal for them. But I think they do keep this one competitive. But unfortunately, Kimberly just shows no signs of relief, and unfortunately, the Empire lives on for a little bit longer. The Ewoks can't celebrate that the Empire is defeated. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Are they number 1 in the state yet, or are they still 2?
I think they're. I didn't actually check. But I believe they're 2. They were 2 last week. But Franklin's that number 1 team.
Franklin. Yep.
Yeah, they're a really good squad. They continue to be that number 1 team. And then let's move over to Nina. Then we'll talk about Nina. So they took down Appleton North. We had that game. We both thought Appleton North was going to win, just on a surprise win, but they did not. 25-14. Evan Van Evenhoven, 8 of 12, 105 yards, 1 interception. He also led in carries. He had 19 carries, 99 yards, and 1 TD. Dean with 2 TDs in the game. Ashton Van Beek, 3 catches, 89 yards, 1 TD. And yeah, so Nina surprised us. So they gave us a surprise. We were going with the Lightning, and we were wrong, as always.
Well,
and I was really wrong on one of my picks, and I know you're gonna probably rub it in, but that's all right. I already got the crap from a couple of players. I'm not gonna say what game, because I want you guys to listen along. But as we go along, Yeah, so Nina just continues to cook, and they found their way against a really good Appleton North team. So what are your thoughts on that one?
In order for them to win this game, they're going to have to play mistake-free football. So
Oh
that
yeah,
one interception that Van Evenhoven had, that the margin for error is so small in this game that they're going to have to play perfect pretty much.
I think they know that. I,
Yeah.
I think that's probably being recited in the locker room like crazy.
So the positives, they have a very strong run game, which we have documented throughout the course of this year. And granting, I think he got dinged up in the Kakana game, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's what happened to him. So he's back. Looks like he's close to fully healthy. If not, he's getting really close there. Dre Hannon's a good backup for him. And Van Evenhoven's going to have to provide a large bulk of the offense here.
Yep,
And I think
there's
it's
going to have to be a passing game established.
yeah, there's going to have to be something here. Now, he was able to get into a little bit of a rhythm, finding a number of different targets, which was good. But you're going to have to find a way to create some explosive plays because that's how you're going to be able to beat Kimberly in this matchup. And then defensively, they have to kind of keep doing what they've been doing, which I will say, and I mentioned that loss to Kakana. They only gave up 17 points. So, and Kakana's got a really, really good offense. So,
Yeah.
and then 14 this past week against Appleton North. They're another good offense. So the defense is going to have to keep playing really, really stout football and hope that the offense can create enough big plays. And I also think that I would not be shocked because these two teams kind of play similarly, where they love to control the clock with the ground game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if they kind of get into that war of who's going to try to control the clock more, I think they're going to lose that battle.
I mean, you got to try though. I mean, winning football teams control the clock. That's always been something. I mean, I know it's not going to be a quick score game. For neither side, I don't think any team's going to get really two big explosive plays. We talked about both defenses being good in this one. Both offenses going to probably establish the trenches with Kimberly and Nina. But I think it's going to be interesting to see like how well. I mean, I guess I would say how well what Nina comes up with in the week, in this week prior, because I think there's got to be some trickery in the back pocket. You're talking about like Nick Foles on the Eagles versus the Patriots in that Super Bowl game. There has to be that Philly special in there, I would assume. And what are your thoughts on like the coaching plan coming into this game? If you were the coach of Nina, what are you saying? How do we beat Kimberly?
You can't. I know what you're saying about let's not stray too far away from what guys here, but I do think there needs to be some wrinkles added to this offense mainly, and then maybe defensively too. You come up with some different coverages of how you want to play the run game. I think the biggest thing that I would be talking about is you got to win the field position battle.
Yep.
Because if you do that, then I think you have a stronger chance here. Because if each team wants to get into the whole fun thing of controlling the clock and doing that, well, if you start closer to the 50 than you do your own 25, that's going to really help you out with that because then you maybe get into field goal range or something along that. So I would say I'd be talking to the special teamers this week, being like, guys, like gunners, those are the two guys on the outside on punt coverages. Like you got to be locked in
Yeah.
if we punt. Maybe they don't punt. Maybe they
Maybe
just
they
score
fake
it
it.
every time.
Maybe they fake it.
Maybe they fake it. So I think special teams for Nina's got to be really solid. That's one thing that we haven't really talked about with a couple of these schools is that their special teams have been really solid this year. So I think field position is going to be a premium in this game. And then as well, I think you kind of have to hope that I don't want to say catch Kimberly on an off day, but,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
you could say it.
okay, so to your point earlier about, Notre Dame and Sheboygan South this week, maybe you eat a bad chicken tender or something like that, and, things kind of get wonky. If they can muck it up, I think that would be the best thing for them because Kimberly's just so versatile with the amount of guys that they can throw at you,
Yep.
especially in that run game. I mean, Keegan Plow, Dylan Peterson, Ellefson can run it. I mean, they've got so many guys that you got to be on, be worried about. So special teams has got to lock in this week, win that field position battle, and then you gotta do everything you can to cloud that line of scrimmage and make it as difficult to gain those, Keegan Plow averaging his 10 yards per carry as possible.
Oh yeah, if I'm Nina, I'm telling the defensive line, you gotta secure the middle. Plow's gonna try to run right through there. If I was them, I'd be running like a 4-3, adding extra guys on the line, showing blitz packages, maybe pulling them off late. Plow's gonna get his carries. They all know that. I mean, what did he have the past week? 15 carries. So he's been averaging quite a few carries per game. He's not going to be on. He's always going to be double digit carries. I guarantee that. And so if you can limit his yardage on those carries because he's going to get his 10 carries at least. If you can limit the yardage on those, I think you're going to have a really good advantage at getting those third and uncomfortables. Not saying third and long, but like third and 6, where you have to go to a different option. So if I'm the Rockets head coach right now, I'm telling my defensive linemen, boys, be ready to push and be ready to push and be ready to push, because you know what, we need that defensive front push. And if you had the chance to get Ellison off foot, like just off tempo and everything else, that's going to be huge. I mean, if he's in tempo and he continues to cook, we know he's consistent. And I think he has the opportunity to make an error and still come out with this one. So if you can get in his head a little bit, get maybe one interception at least, and get that home crowd kind of rallying around it. I think I'm a big psychological game guy. I think the psychological game, if you let it eat you up a little bit, there could be an upset there. But let's do a score prediction for this one. Well, we already did with Nina, and
I said 35-21.
Yeah, and I said 24 or 27, 28.
I think you were 31-21, I think.
30, yeah, that was 31-21. But
Yeah.
anyways, let's continue to move on. We'll move a little bit north there, over to Kakana. We'll have you introduce this one.
The Kakana Galloping Ghosts. What a season they've had. 5-1. They defeated Oshkosh West 41-14 this past week, and they did not turn back. They scored 34 points in the first half, really causing a lot of pressure to that Oshkosh West offense. Bron Schaefer, 168 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks though, so that's a couple weeks in a row here that turnover bug has kind of gotten to him a little bit. Aiden Reardon, 156 yards. He did average 10 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Kyle Kress, 15 carries, 121 yards in his own right. He had a touchdown. Bron Schaefer had a touchdown on the ground. And Lathan Hurst had a touchdown as well. So Kakana, really, really, really quality win here. They play Appleton North this week, and then things get really interesting for them. They currently sit atop the Fox Valley. I guess they're technically tied with Kimberly, but after this week, so they host Appleton North in Kakana on Friday. They then go to Kimberly next week.
It's going to be a tough one.
Kimberly, the next 2 weeks, probably the game of the week in the area. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, because I was going to say Bayport plays West Superior next week.
That's correct. That's going to be another good one. So, Kakana, the big story here is that run game. They had 4 total rushing touchdowns as a team. They probably could have won this game against Oshkosh West without throwing the ball downfield. They do like to pass it, which I do respect very much about them. Kayvon Wyenberg had 6 catches for 76 yards in this one. And defensively, 2 sacks. So really causing pressure for that Oshkosh West defense. Here's my question to you, sir.
To me, sir. Sir.
Oh, yeah. I'm a respectful guy here.
I'm a British authority, aren't I? Sir Jonathan Samp.
Or Sir Jonathan Samp.
There you go.
They play Appleton North this week. Is there potentially a scenario that you can see where they're overlooking this game and slip up a little bit because they have such a big game next week?
In a way. I think this is a really organized, team. You've seen them come to town. You've seen how they play. They play explosive. They play with a game plan oriented to their opponent that week. I think their coach does a really nice job of planning. week by week instead of looking 2 weeks ahead, skipping this week. Maybe we have a sloppier team. I There is a potential that they do slip up. I'm not going to lie about that. There's always that potential because you know what? Every team that's leading in the conference has a target on their back. And every team like your Appleton North, who's 3-1, and whatever 3-1 has one loss and just one recently, they're looking to get back in it. They're looking to get back in that playoff contention and looking to make keep their name and keep their season alive. So they're going to have a target on their back, and without a doubt, I think they're going to come with pressure. I think the Appleton North are going to look like lightning out there on offense and sting like bees on defense because it's going to be a tough one for Kaukauna. I don't think Kaukauna is going to get an easy win in this one. I think they are going to have to work for this one. It might not be the prettiest win, but I still think the Phantoms there, or Galloping Ghosts, excuse me. I always get the two confused. Same colors, same scheme.
Here.
Yep, Galloping Ghosts do get a win here. And similar mascot too, Phantom Galloping Ghosts.
Yeah, really close.
Really kind of similar. And I think maybe the same guy came up with the mascot. Back to track though. I think the Galloping Ghosts do find a way to win this one. I know it's not going to be probably a pretty one. I think Appleton North's offense is going to come out, jetting. You're going to see kind of like that. I would say like, they're going to have a lot of different options there. They're going to run passes. They're going to run, inside runs, but they're also going to throw in jet sweeps and maybe some other trickery just to get Kaukauna on their heels a little bit. I would not doubt that because I think Appleton North has nothing to lose at this point. They got to get those big upset wins, and they got to try to spoil some games. And that's exactly what they're going to try to do. They know they lost, and they got to try to figure out a way. They lost to Neenah here, and they got to try to figure out a way to get themselves back in it, especially because Neenah now has Kimberly in town, and that could be a loss for them. And that would add, another loss on their season and potentially move Appleton North higher up in the rankings and standings. So given standing implications, I think Appleton North is going to come out jetting. I think they're going to have a really focused game plan against this Kaukauna team. I wouldn't be surprised if we see, a lot of different looks from them and just different things that we haven't seen before, both on offense and defense, maybe positions lining up and just different kind of trickery. I always believe in high school football, you got to have those back pocket plays, especially if you're a team that's got trying to fight for the season. You got to have those plays nobody's expecting because there's only so much film out there on your team. And it's not like a team that typically, like a college season where there's, thousands of cameras. There's a couple cameras. Yes, there is some cameras, but there's not nearly as much footage on your team. So there's a lot of things you can hide as a coach in the high school football level versus like, college or pro level where everybody's at your practices, everybody's looking at what you're doing. And I think if you're Appleton North, you are coming with that trickery because you got nothing to lose, you got nothing to hide, and you got to get a win. So it's simple as that. I think Appleton North does come out jetting, and they look for a lot of different looks in this one. But I do I do expect Kaukauna to get the win.
I agree. I do think that Appleton North needs to try to get their run game going a bit more. Their leading rusher was their quarterback, Charlie Olson, who had 37 yards. And their lead back... Good. Yeah, their lead back this past week against Neenah. Now, granted, Neenah does have a good run defense. DJ Wilson, 10 carries for 30 yards, and even I can do that basic math. That's 3 yards carry. Not great.
Wow, you are really smart. You must read really big books.
I really do. Yeah, shout
big,
out to Dr.
big book
Seuss.
kind of guy.
So, yeah. So, 77 yards total as a team on the ground. They were really one-dimensional in this game against Neenah. And I kind of think that's why Neenah was able to separate a little bit in the fourth quarter. Now, Appleton North in this game did hold a 14-10 lead going into the fourth quarter. They have to be able to finish the game. That's going to be what I would be saying to the guys all week is we had them. We know we had them. Just got to finish it. And that's going to be no different than this week against Kaukauna because Kaukauna, Coach Binfield does a phenomenal job at practicing play to the whistle, play to the final play. So Kaukauna, we know what they're going to do. They have a high-octane offense. but you can get to them. We mentioned Braun Schaefer has had a couple turnovers here. They are going to have to force those turnovers because he's going to give them opportunities. I remember I was listening to, I forget who it was, but they were talking about playing against Brett Favre. And, Favre, for as amazing as he did give the other team opportunities to make plays. And so when he did give you that chance, you had to come down with it. And I think that's where Appleton North has to be this week. They're 4-2 overall. The Appleton North is. They are tied with Neenah for third in the conference, and there's potential to move up there. So from the Kaukauna perspective, you got to be ready for this one.
Yep.
You, without question, have to be. These next 2 weeks here are going to define their season, I think. They had a really tough start to the season. It got, I don't want to say easier, Neenah was in there, but the schedule lightened up a little bit. These next 2 weeks are really going to make or break kind of where they sit when the season's all said and done. So, Appleton North, I know it's going to be tough. They're going to Kaukauna. Kaukauna historically has always had a good crowd, but if you want to improve your resume, if you want to really have a trademark season like they've so far been having, 4-2 at this point, to give some sort of perspective, they went 6-4 last year, so they're on pace to do better than that. If they want to do better than that, I think you got to win this game. So Kaukauna has got to be set, ready to go, because Appleton North will punch you in the mouth. The key is, can they finish in the fourth quarter?
Yep. I agree with everything you said there. Let's do a score prediction, though.
Ooh, this one's tough. This one is tough. If we didn't just talk about going to Kimberly Neenah, I may think about going to this one.
Might be a little closer.
Probably is closer.
Geographically.
Ooh, that's a big word for you now, too.
Oh, big bucks, big bucks. A lot of big bucks.
A lot of big bucks. I'm going to say Kaukauna has been rolling ever since week 1. They know how to score points. They don't give up many points. And in a close game like this, I think I'm going to lead towards the home team. I do think it's going to be close. I'm going to go 24-20. I think Kaukauna just barely edges him out, but I could really see this being an upset, but I'm going to take the home team just because it's that close.
Yeah, and I'm not going to miss here. I'm hoping not, because our next discussion might be coming up here. But I'm going to go Kaukauna as well. I'm going to give them 31, and I'm going to give the Lightning 24. I think it's going to be kind of a back and forth, but I think when it comes down to the end, I think Kaukana's got the advantage with that home crowd. Get everybody rowdy, and the Galloping Ghosts are going to continue galloping here and have another great game, and maintain the top spot in that Fox Valley Association Conference and continue things moving forward. But let's talk about the one I got roasted on. Let's talk about the one I should show a recap of what I said. I wanted my Birds to win. Well, not really my Birds, but the Birds. West Pere, they rocked the socks off of De Pere, 49-0. Grayson, 16 for 22, 245 yards, 3 TDs, 1 interception. Evan Knott, 18 carries, 79 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 fumble. And then, big part of that offense, coming through the passing game, and Grayson looked fantastic once again. There's just not a lot you can say bad about him. And Kirkeren, he had 5 catches, 81 yards, and 1 touchdown for those Phantoms. And I missed on this one. I thought the 11 interceptions from the Redbirds were going to upset Grayson, but apparently not. I heard, I talked to some of the players from West Pere, and the one, I'm not going to say his name, but he was unsure of what was going on after the first half because it was kind of a blowout, and he was like this was nothing like what they expected. I asked him, did you know about DePere's 11 picks on the season coming into that game? He said yes, and he said he doesn't know where that kind of happened, and like how that didn't, that defense didn't really put that kind of pressure on. So I'm not sure what happened. Maybe DePere did get that, a little bit old chicken tender at lunch that day, and had that little sloppy stomach. Who knows? But I know I heard a lot of things on that Saturday when I came into work, and I had a lot of those high school kids coming in too, and they were talking about the big win, and I was like, really, you guys had to do it that badly? So I had to get Dom D'Angelo to give me some of the toast and jelly here on another week of football. Because I was toasted, and I said the Birds were going to get it, and I was so wrong. It's 49-0. I mean, congrats, obviously, to the Phantoms. Just doing a lot of good things over there and continuing to do a lot of good things. And they do have a couple big games coming up here. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But let's have you initial thoughts on that West Superior rocking the Redbirds and up, just kind of getting things done.
If it makes you feel better, they did intercept their 12th pass of the season, so you can ride on that. This game was over after the first quarter. It was 21-0 after 1, 35-0 at half. I sound like a brokered record saying this, but Patrick Ryson is pretty phenomenal. 245 more yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Only missed 6 passes. To me, what was most interesting was that DePere offensively really didn't get anything going. They only had 84 total rushing yards. I don't remember off the top of my head what that number was the last number of weeks, but I know for a fact it was higher than 84. Marcus Schmidt really struggled in this one, 8 for 16, 94 yards. He had an interception. So,
is that a credit to West DePere's defense, do you think?
I'm inclined to say yes, because I know we had this conversation last week when we were talking about this game and about how well the West DePere defense has been playing, with the exception of the Kaukauna loss. They've given up if you take out that Kaukauna loss in their other, 5 games here, they've given up 6 points. So I think that defense is actually a lot better than maybe even we realize. I know we were singing their praises last week, but DePere's a legit team here. It's not like this was some cupcake school. DePere is 4-2 on the season, came in on a high. They were feeling good about themselves. They had won 3 straight, and then that happens. And that I almost wonder.
Those birds fell out of the nest.
They fell out of the nest, but I almost wonder if after, the first however long it was when West DePere started that onslaught of just scoring all their points, if they were kind of shell-shocked at what was happening, and maybe that's kind of what led to the downfall, if you're kind of picking up what I'm putting down here. So I think...
it's okay to laugh on the podcast. You can make jokes. It's totally fine.
Well, I feel good about this one because, unlike some people, I did pick West DePere to win. Just throwing that out there. But this defense is way better than we maybe even gave them credit for. They had a sack in this game. Like I said, two total picks, I believe. Cooper Borowitz had 1. So massive credit to the West DePere defense, because when your offense is going to score points, you just got to make sure that the defense isn't going to let up everything, and they haven't this year, so massive credit to them.
Yeah, they were not only a brick wall in that game, they were a stone wall. Stone walls are stronger. Hypothetically, I don't know. We had a goalie that always said that. He always called himself Stonewall. But yeah, West DePere looking good. Continues to play good. They do have the Ashwaubenon Jaguars this week, so it should be a win right for the Phantoms, you'd expect.
I would think so. Ashwaubenon's 3-3 on the season. They can't score points, but
yeah,
I mean,
they've had their
I thought
troubles.
DePere was going to score points too.
But looking ahead, let's go one more week, because this is going to be a really big game, and then they have to go to Bayport, who has a solid pass rush. Their defense looks good. They have a good defense. They've got a number of sacks on the season. They're kind of led by that Nick Hawker crew. Max Romanesco's been in there as well. But that Bayport team, if you're Coach Greisen, Are you making any adjustments for that game? You're not even looking at that game. We talked about this before, looking at 1 week mentality, or just because it is such a big game, and there is such a implication on this because it's for that basically for the North, battle for the North there. Is there any implication that you think, Greison's actually Coach Greison's looking ahead a week, or is he going to just focus on what he has with that Schwaben this week and then work his way over to Bayport?
I think Coach Greison's been doing this long enough that he kind of knows how this goes. Because we've talked about how I don't remember how many years Coach Greison's been at West Superior. I know it's been a few. Um, he's seen this before when he's got a big game coming up the next week. I think he's still taking 1 week at a time. At least that's what I would do. I totally understand the implications of that game next week. I'm excited to. I'm gonna try to go to that one. I think because that'll
Another
be.
Johnny and Dom road show.
I say we should start. We should start doing that. That should be our
Yeah,
last
we
few
could
weeks
film
of the
us in the
season
car
here.
and then be like, we traveled 20 minutes to this place, and
We could do like game day vlogs or something like that.
dude,
But
I would be down for that if
that'd be
have
no.
off. Yeah,
So I think you take it 1 week at a time. The Schwaben, I know we said they're not maybe the greatest team in the world. They can still score points. They're averaging 31 on the season. Now, a bulk of that came in the first 3 games of the year when they went 49, 56, 49. They've really struggled the last couple weeks to find that rhythm offensively. So West Superior should have relatively no issues here with the Jags. So I think next week when we're yapping together again,
yep,
it's
yapping
it,
another week. It's always fun.
it's gonna be 6-1 against 6-1 because Bayport is at De Pere, so that could be interesting. But
Yep, we'll get to that.
yeah, I think West De Pere is in a pretty good spot here. I like the way that they're trending to finish the season. They haven't lost since week 2,
Yeah.
so they've ripped off 4 straight here. They look really solid.
All right, now let's move to that Bayport game. Bayport took on Southwest, excuse me, and they sailed past them, 49-10. Like my little verbiage, adding a little bit different things.
I gotta say that was good. That was
Yep.
good.
Matt Stevens, thank you. 6 for 7, 108 yards, one TD, so a solid game. And then looking, Brady Moon found the end zone 4 times with 10 carries for 55 yards. And then Jackson Otradovich was a huge contributor on ground game, 8 carries, 63 yards, 1 TD. And defensive presence was once again good for the Pirates. Once again, defending, they just keep out and they keep that defense strong. But the Pirates traveled to the Redbirds' nest. They go to the nest this week, so they got an away game, and then they're at home against West Pier next week, as we talked about. And they got a good one with the Pier. Talking about this one, we kind of mentioned it before. Do you think the Pier can upset Bayport, or do you think Bayport comes out with the win here in this one?
I think De Pere's in a good spot to potentially upset them. I am still picking Bayport in this game. It's at De Pere, which should help, and also De Pere is coming off of
Yeah, a little bit of redemption.
and they're coming off a pretty embarrassing loss to West De Pere. So they're itching to get back out there and right the ship. So maybe take over the ship if you know what I'm saying. But
Hey, there you go. Now you're starting to get into the fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do think Bayport wins. I do think De Pere is capable of mucking it up, but defensively, that pass rush for the Pirates is all hands on deck with that. I mean, I think they had 4 sacks in the game this past week, something close to that.
Yep.
I mean, they're just really, really stout defensively, and 12 tackles for loss too.
Yeah.
Max Romanesco had 4 of them.
Yep.
So
They're dogs. They're shooting gaps and hitting quarterbacks. But I'm going to push you for a score prediction on this one. Let's talk about it. Let's get a score here.
let's go. I'm gonna say Bayport. They've been really scoring a lot these last few weeks here. 41 back to back, and then 49 back to back. I do think De Pere, because of that redemption factor, is going to come out hungry, looking for something. So I'm gonna go Bayport is going to win this one. I'm going to say 35-20 because I think there's going to be one of two things, either a missed extra point, or I would not be shocked to see De Pere go for 2 because they know they have to keep scoring. So 35-20 in favor of the Pirates.
All right, I'm going to give mine. I'm going to keep it at that 35 for the Pirates, and then I'm going to go 24. So pretty similar. I think De Pere does have a solid squad. They got a good defense. That's one thing for Matt Stevens to watch out for. A lot of picks on the season, and I think they're looking for more. Got to get those picks and those turnovers. But I think, unfortunately, the defense from the Pirates has been playing out of their mind lately, and they continue to play out of their mind. And then that offense just continues to cook, led by Matt Stevens, and they just keep on doing what they're doing. I do not see any reason why Bayport can't win this game, even though it is an away game. Bayport does play pretty well on the road, I would say, just for the most part. I mean, they're a really solid squad. But, yeah, I think Bayport gets a win. I think that's general consensus around high school crunch time here. The cast or the crew or the hosts here. Dom D'Angelo and Jonny Samp here on High School Crunch Time, in case you forgot what you're watching. But, yeah, so I think Bayport gets a win. I think, just doing a recap here, we got West Pier getting a win. I think Bayport gets a win. And then we said Kaukauna gets a win. Neenah, we said Kimberly's probably going to take that one, but Neenah's going to make it interesting. And then Notre Dame gets another dub to continue things out. So I think it's, it looks like a lot of wins in the win column here for a lot of teams, but it should be another fun week of high school football. Do you have any other sports you'd like to highlight this week before we close things out?
Yeah, I know girls golf has regionals start both today and tomorrow. So this is just a little PSA to whoever runs that stuff, either the WIAA or to the Coaches Association, something like that. If you could please put out some numbers for us to look at, because we would love to talk about that stuff.
Yep.
I was searching all day for some numbers of some players to talk about, and couldn't find any. All I know is that girls golf has their regionals this week. I know the FRCC championship was, I believe, late last week. I think maybe on Thursday. So there's a lot of good stuff going on with girls golf this week at a number of different locations. It looks like Hudson, Holman, De Pere, Appleton, Beaver Dam are all hosting some different ones. Wisconsin Dells is hosting one too for Division II. So girls golf has their regionals this week, and then girls tennis is actually wrapping things up. I know, just speaking from the Notre Dame perspective, I know their last match, regular season match, was last night. So senior night was last night for them already. So girls golf and girls tennis are coming to the end of their seasons here, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast the season's moving. Fall season. But yeah, it's been crazy, and it's a lot of fun, and we're going to be back next week, as we always are, Jonny and Dom. So thank you once again for watching High School Crunch Time. This has been another awesome episode, and we'd love to get in touch with you. Make sure to tweet at me at RealJohnnySamp, Dom D'Angelo on his Instagram at DomD'Angelo27, or you can email us at WESPNSports.com if you have any takes, anything you would like to see in the show, any golf scores. If you have golf scores, we'd love to see them. Make sure
Please send them in. Please send them in. We would love to talk about that.
Make sure to send those in to us. We're hoping to have a big show next week, having our first guests on the show, and it should be really exciting. So, folks, we do appreciate all your support, and we do want to thank you. But signing off for High School Crunch Time, I'm Jonny Samp, and that's Dom D'Angelo. Have a good night, everybody.